Revenge with Karen.
The bass in Lumen doesn't hit you in the chest. It slides under your skin like a local anesthetic, numbing the part of your brain that worries about your credit score or your marriage. That's by design. I spent 6 months with sound engineers just to get the acoustics of the VIP mezzanine to whisper instead of scream. I'm Vanessa, and while you might think you're paying for the Grey Goose bottle service, you're actually paying for my obsession with control. I don't stand in the spotlight. I stand in the shadows behind the DJ booth or in the tinted glass office overlooking the floor, watching the ecosystem I built eat money and spit out dopamine. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Friday. The floor was at 70% capacity, a swaying ocean of linen suits, silk dresses, and enough filler injections to float a battleship. I was leaning against the back bar of the Diamond Room, the invite-only sector, sipping a club soda with a splash of bitters. My eyes were scanning the room, checking the flow. The waitresses, my sirens, were moving with that synchronized grace I drill into them during Tuesday afternoon trainings. Everything was perfect. Everything was a well-oiled machine of luxury and vice. If you enjoy stories about people getting exactly what they deserve, go ahead and hit subscribe, because trust me, we're about to deconstruct an ego the size of South Beach. I saw him. The glitch, Chase. He was sitting in booth 4, the prime real estate right next to the balcony rail. He shouldn't have been there. Booth 4 is reserved for people who own islands or record labels, not for 26-year-old influencers whose primary source of income is their father's trust fund and promo codes for teeth whitening strips. But there he was, standing on the Italian leather banquette, shoes on the upholstery, strike one, holding a phone attached to a ring light that was blinding the guests at the next table. He looked like a parody of Miami Vice. He was wearing sunglasses indoors, a shirt unbuttoned to his navel to show off a chest tattoo that I'm pretty sure was a lion wearing a crown, groundbreaking, and he was screaming. I couldn't hear the words over the deep house set, but I could read the body language. He was performing. He was gesturing wildly, pointing at the bottle girls, grabbing a passing server by the arm to pull her into his frame. I felt a muscle twitch under my left eye. "Jackson," I said into the comms piece discreetly tucked behind my ear. "Go for Jackson," the voice of my head of security crackled back. Jackson is 6'5" of calm, terrifying muscle. He's the kind of guy who can de-escalate a drunk NFL linebacker with a look. "Booth 4, I said, my voice low. "Why is Chase standing on my leather?" Slipped 100 to the new busboy to look the other way, boss. "Want me to bounce him?" I watched Chase pose, throwing up peace signs while a bored-looking girl with vacant eyes poured vodka into his mouth straight from the bottle. It was tacky. It was cheap. It was everything Lumen stood against. We sell mystique. Chase was selling volume. "Not yet," I said, though every instinct in my body screamed to have him dragged out by his Gucci loafers. Who is he with? Standard entourage. 2 guys who look like they sell crypto out of a Honda Civic, and 3 girls who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. Oh, and he's live streaming. My grip tightened on my glass. Live streaming? In the Diamond Room? Yeah, he's tagging us. Caption says Lumen is dead vibes, we bringing the life. I felt a cold, sharp anger settle in my stomach. It wasn't the insult that bothered me. People call my club pretentious all the time. That's part of the brand. It was the violation of the contract. The Diamond Room has one rule, written in gold leaf on the entrance. What happens here stays in the dark. No photos, no videos. We have CEOs cheating on their wives, pop stars doing lines in the bathroom, and politicians making deals that would topple governments. They come here because I sell them invisibility. Chase wasn't just being annoying, he was threatening my product. I moved from the bar, sliding through the crowd like a shark in dark water. I needed to see this up close. I didn't approach him directly, that's rookie behavior. You don't confront a drunk narcissist when he has an audience, you give him rope. I circled around to the upper mezzanine, looking down at booth 4. From this angle, I could see his phone screen. He was reading comments. He wasn't even enjoying the night, he was just feeding the digital beast. Grabbed a bottle of Dom Perignon, vintage 2012, wasted on him and shook it. "Don't do it," I whispered to myself. He popped the cork. Foam exploded over the table, soaking the girls, soaking the velvet drapes I had imported from France, and spraying the back of a man sitting in the adjacent booth. The man in the adjacent booth turned around. It was a hedge fund manager who spent 50 grand a month here. He looked furious. Chase didn't notice. Chase was laughing at his phone, high-fiving one of the crypto bros. "Jackson," I said again. "Green light?" "No," I said, forcing myself to breathe. "Yellow light. Send a floor manager to tell him to put the phone away." Politely. Let's see how he reacts to a boundary. Copy that, sending Marco. I watched as Marco, my best floor manager, approached the table. Marco is slick, charming, and diplomatic. He leaned in, whispering in Chase's ear, gesturing gently to the phone. I saw Chase's face change. The smile vanished, replaced by a sneer that looked too big for his face. He pulled away from Marco, shouting something. He pointed a finger in Marco's face. Then he did the one thing you never do in my house. He shoved Marco. It wasn't a hard shove, just a drunk, entitled stumble push, but it was contact. The music seemed to stop for me, though the beat kept thumping. Boss. Jackson's voice was tighter now. Hold, I said. Let him dig. He's feeling invincible. Let's find out why. Chase was back on his phone now, clearly recounting the injustice to his followers. I could imagine the narrative, they trying to silence the king. Haters everywhere. He looked around the room with a sneering arrogance, as if he owned the bricks, the mortar, and the souls of everyone inside. He didn't know I was watching, didn't know that the woman he used to call Auntie Vanessa when he was 12 years old was currently calculating the exact structural integrity of his social life. He thought he was the main character. He was about to find out he was just a prop. Let him stay for now, I said, turning away from the railing, but put a shadow on him. I want to know every drink he orders, every person he talks to, and every time he goes to the bathroom. If he sneezes, want to know the velocity. Understood. What's the play? I walked back toward the shadows of my office. The play is a history lesson, Jackson. Sometimes you have to remind people who actually built the castle they're partying in. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the security feed on my monitor. Chase was a pixelated blur of arrogance on screen 4. I opened a drawer and pulled out a file. It was old, physical paper, smelling of dust and nostalgia. Name on the tab read, Reynolds Thomas, Chase's father. The reason Chase was allowed to breathe my air. Enjoy the champagne, kid, I murmured to the screen. It's going to be the most expensive drink you ever had. To understand why I didn't just have Jackson toss Chase out the back door like a bag of wet garbage, you have to understand Miami 10 years ago. It wasn't this crypto bro, TikTok influencer hellscape it is now. It was grittier. It was harder. I was nobody. I was 35, tired, and sitting on a business plan for Lumen that every bank in Dade County had used as a coaster. I had the vision. I knew people wanted privacy more than they wanted noise, but I didn't have the capital. I was a woman in a nightlife industry run by men who thought branding meant slapping a neon sign on a warehouse and selling watered-down vodka. Enter Thomas Reynolds. Thomas was old school. He made his money in shipping logistics, actual hard assets moving across actual oceans. He didn't wear Balenciaga. He wore bespoke suits that didn't have labels because the people who mattered knew who made them. He came into the dive bar I was managing at the time, ordered a scotch, neat, and listened to me pitch him while he smoked a cigar that cost more than my car. You want to sell silence, he had said, looking at me with eyes that had seen everything. In a city that loves to scream, loudest people have the most to hide, I told him. I want to give them a place to hide it in luxury. He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound, smart girl. He wrote the check the next day. No predatory interest rates, no demand for 51% equity. Just a handshake and a request, build something beautiful, Vanessa, and look out for my boy if I'm not around. That was the hook. That was the ghost that haunted me. Chase was 16 then. Thomas would bring him by the construction site of Lumen. The kid was quiet back then, awkward, with braces and a desperate need for his father's approval. I used to give him cokes and let him sit in the DJ booth while we tested the sound systems. He looked at me with awe. I was the cool aunt, the woman building the empire his dad was funding. When Thomas died of a massive stroke 3 years ago, the funeral was an event. And Chase changed. Grief didn't humble him, the inheritance emboldened him. He went from a shy kid to a brand overnight. The millions Thomas left him didn't go into shipping or logistics. They went into buying followers, renting Lamborghinis, and funding a lifestyle that screamed new money so loud it shattered glass. He started coming to Lumen more often. At first, out of respect for Thomas, I comped his tables. I let him skip the line. I told the staff, that's Thomas's son. Treat him like family. But family doesn't treat your house like a toilet. The shift was gradual, like mold growing behind wallpaper. First, it was the snapping fingers at the waitresses. Then it was the complaints that the music was too old we play deep house. He wanted trap remixes of nursery rhymes. Then came the name dropping. I heard it myself a month ago at charity gala. I was standing near the buffet, unseen as always. Chase was talking to a group of investors, people I knew. Yeah, Lumen basically runs itself, he was saying, swirling a martini. I advised Vanessa on the creative direction. You know she's great, but she's got that boomer energy. I'm the one bringing in the heat. I'm practically a silent partner. I remember freezing, a shrimp skewer halfway to my mouth. Silent partner? The kid didn't know the difference between a P and L statement and a PDF. That night at the gala, I should have cut him off. I should have walked over and dismantled him in front of those investors. But I saw Thomas's face in his eyes. I saw the man who gave me my shot, so I swallowed the rage. I let it slide. I thought, he's grieving. He's young. He'll grow out of it, but watching him tonight on the security monitor, shoving Marco, soaking my upholstery, treating my life's work like a backdrop for his vanity project. The debt was paid. Memory of Thomas Reynolds was a shield, but Chase had just hammered it until it cracked. I looked at the file on my desk. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer, Saul. It was midnight, but Saul doesn't sleep, he just bills. Vanessa? Saul's voice was gravelly. Someone dead? Not yet, I said, staring at the screen where Chase was now standing on the table again. But a legacy is about to be. Is this about the Reynolds kid? He's escalating, Saul. He's assaulting staff and violating the NDA policy on the floor. But worse, he's leveraging my name to secure funding for his own venue. Saul sighed. I warned you. You gave him the golden key, Vanessa. Retracting access is going to be messy. He has a platform. If you ban him, he'll claim discrimination. He'll claim you're stealing his ideas. He'll unleash 1 million bots on your Yelp page. I know, I said, leaning back in my chair. The leather creaked. That's why I'm not just going to ban him. I'm going to humiliate him. I need you to look into the trust structure Thomas set up. Specifically, the morality and competence clause. That's a nuclear option, Vanessa. You need proof of gross negligence or reputational damage to the estate. I looked at the monitor. Chase was currently trying to pour vodka into the mouth of a girl who was clearly too intoxicated to consent, while his friend filmed it. I think I can get the proof, I said, my voice cold. I think I'm going to give him enough rope to hang himself, his trust fund, and his future club all in one night. Be careful, Saul warned. A wounded narcissist is dangerous. He's not a narcissist, Saul, I said, watching Chase slip and almost fall off the table. He's a child playing with matches in a paper house. And I'm about to open a window. Vibration of my phone on the mahogany desk sounded like a drill. It was 1:15 a.m. The message was from VIP7, a contact name for an A-list actor who used Lumen as a safe haven when he was in town filming. He was currently sitting in the gold room, 2 sections over from Chase. I opened the text. No words, just a screen recording. It was an Instagram live. Chase's account. The angle was shaky, zooming in past his own sweating face, past the sparklers on his bottles, directly into the dimly lit corner of the gold room. The caption read, "Look who's cheating on his diet and his wife. lol#lumen#exposed." In the grainy footage, you could clearly see VIP7 holding hands with a woman who was definitely not his very famous, very litigious wife. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a violation, this was a lawsuit. This was the end of Lumen's reputation. If this got out, if a celebrity got outed in my house, the silence I sold would be worthless. Every high roller in Miami would vanish overnight. I didn't call Jackson this time. I stood up, smoothing the front of my silk blazer, and walked out of the office. I moved fast, bypassing the main stairs and taking the service corridor that dumped me out right behind the DJ booth. The club was peaking. The energy was frantic, but all I saw was liability. Found Jackson near the entrance of the diamond room. He saw my face and immediately straightened up. He knows that look. It's the look that means we are in damage control mode. Code red? He asked, leaning in to hear me over the bass. Worse, Chase is broadcasting VIP7. Get the signal jammer on that specific sector. Now, we have localized signal dampeners. They're technically a gray area legally, but in the nightlife world, they're essential. Jackson tapped his earpiece. Kill the feed in Zone 4. I watched as Chase, still in his booth, suddenly frowned at his phone. He tapped the screen aggressively. He held it up in the air, searching for the signal we had just strangled. Now, I told Jackson, I need you to go to VIP7. Apologize. Comp the entire night. Tell him the leak has been contained and the individual responsible is being handled. Lie if you have to. Tell him we confiscated the device. And Chase. Jackson cracked his knuckles. Do we toss him now? No. I watched Chase rebooting his phone, looking like a toddler whose iPad died. If we toss him now, he goes home, gets on Wi-Fi, and uploads the saved video. He has the footage on his camera roll. This was the trap. If he left the building, the video left with him. I needed that phone, or I needed him to delete it. So what's the plan? Jackson asked. We need to get him to the vault, I said. Vault is a private tasting room in the basement. Soundproof. No signal, intimidating as hell. Invite him down, I instructed. Tell him the owner wants to discuss a partnership. Tell him we want to feature him as the face of our new summer campaign. Stroke the ego. Jackson smirked. He'll swallow that hook whole, I know. Once he's down there, get the phone. Tell him it's a phone-free brainstorming session. While you have the phone, wipe the video. And if he resists, he won't. Wants validation more than he wants content. Give him the validation. I watched from the shadows as Jackson approached Chase's table. I saw the shift in Chase's demeanor. The aggression melted into a smug satisfaction. He nodded, high-fived his bros, and stood up, adjusting his unbuttoned shirt. He thought he was being summoned to the throne. He followed Jackson toward the service elevator. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Step 1, containment. This was a temporary fix. I couldn't monitor his phone every time he walked in. I couldn't employ a full-time signal jammer just for one nepotism baby. I went back to my office and pulled up the footage of the meeting in the vault on my private screen. There was no audio on this feed, but I didn't need it. I watched Chase hand over his phone to Jackson, laughing, probably making a joke about how he knew this day would come. Jackson placed the phone in a Faraday bag on the table, standard protocol for high-level meetings, and proceeded to negotiate. I knew Jackson was currently feeding him a line of bullshit about a Lumen ambassador program. I watched Chase nodding, gesturing, talking about himself. He had no idea that while they spoke, my tech guy, who had entered the room as a waiter to collect the phone for security tagging, was currently scrubbing the metadata and the recent files in the back room. 10 minutes later, the waiter returned the phone. Chase didn't even check it. He shook Jackson's hand and left the room, looking like he'd just conquered Rome. He went back up to the party. I sat in the dark. I had saved the night. VIP 7 was safe. The brand was safe. For tonight. But Chase had crossed the line from nuisance to predator. He had hunted my guests for clout. I looked at the calendar on my wall. Next Friday was the Eclipse event. Our quarterly rebrand party, the most exclusive night of the season. Okay, Chase, I whispered. You want to be a partner? You want to be a player? Let's see how you play when the game is rigged. I pulled a fresh notepad toward me. At the top, I wrote Operation Blacklist. Underneath, I wrote 3 things. 1, the setup, the invitation. 2, the audience, the silent partner. 3, execution, the ban. I wasn't just going to kick him out. I was going to make sure that by the time he left, he didn't have a name to drop anymore. In Miami, the most powerful word isn't yes. It's no. No creates desire. No builds value. If you tell a man like Chase he can't have something, he will burn down his own house trying to get it. The Eclipse event was designed to be a fortress of no. I spent the week curating the guest list with the precision of a surgeon. 200 people. No plus ones. Physical invitations only, heavy black cardstock with gold embossed lettering that contained an NFC chip for entry. No chip, no entry. I sent invites to the mayor, to the top 3 real estate moguls in the state, to VIP 7 as a peace offering, and to Marcus Sterling. Marcus Sterling is a ghost, owns a venture capital firm that quietly funds half the luxury hospitality sector in the Southeast. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't do press. But I knew Chase had been pitching him. I knew because Chase had been bragging about it at the bar, loud enough for my bartenders to hear. Chase was trying to get Sterling to fund Cloud9, his proposed club that would put Lumen out of business. I invited Sterling. I did not invite Chase. The reaction was immediate. By Tuesday, the texts started coming in. Hey, Auntie V, didn't get my invite for Friday yet. Mailman must be slacking lol. Vanessa, my boys are asking about the Eclipse table. Let me know which booth we got. Yo, are you ignoring me? I'm bringing key investors. Need that table. I didn't reply. I let the silence sit. I let it marinate. By Thursday, he was frantic. He was posting stories, big things coming Friday at Lumen. The king returns. Believe the rumors. We locked in. He was lying to his audience. He was betting on the fact that he could just show up and bully his way past the door like he always did. He was betting on the Thomas Reynolds privilege. On Friday morning, I met with Jackson and the entire security team in the empty club. The daylight made the velvet look tired, but tonight, under the leads, it would look like magic. Here are the rules of engagement for tonight, I said, projecting the floor plan on the screen. Phone ban is absolute. Yonder pouches for everyone. No exceptions. What about Chase? Jackson asked. He's not on the list. Do we stop him at the door? No, I said, a small, cold smile touching my lips. If we stop him at the door, he makes a scene outside. He films the bouncers. He plays the victim. We let him in. The team looked confused. We let him in, I repeated. But we treat him like a ghost. No table, no comped bottles, no special handshake. He pays cover. He stands at the bar, and most importantly, we let him think he's winning until he isn't. I turned to the next slide. It was a photo of Marcus Sterling. This man, I pointed, is the target. He will be in the owner's box with me. Chase has been trying to get a meeting with him for months. When Chase sees him, he will try to approach. He will try to pitch. Do we intercept? Only when he crosses the line. I said I want Sterling to see Chase in his natural habitat. I want the money to see the clown. I walked over to the window looking out at the city. It was humid, the air thick with impending rain. Chase thinks he's a partner, I said softly. Tonight, we show him he's just a liability. I checked my phone. Another DM from Chase. I'm coming with a crew. Don't embarrass me, Vanessa. My dad wouldn't like it. That was it. The final nail, using his dead father to threaten me. I typed a reply for the first time all week. See you tonight, Chase. Dress code is strict. It was ambiguous. It was a trap. He replied instantly with a fire emoji. He had no idea that I had already instructed the door staff to flag his attire no matter what he wore, just to make him sweat, just to make him angry before he even stepped foot inside. An angry man makes mistakes. And tonight, I needed a catastrophe. Theme for Eclipse was Midnight Garden. We had draped the entire ceiling in cascading wisteria and installed localized scent diffusers that smelled of jasmine and expensive gin. The lighting was low, deep purples and blues, making everyone's skin look flawless. It wasn't a club, it was a film set. By 11 o'clock p.m., the room was a gallery of power. The mayor was sipping whiskey in booth 1. 2 NBA players were low-key in the corner. And in the owner's box, glass-walled mezzanine that hovered above the DJ booth, sat Marcus Sterling. He was a man of few words, sharp features, and a suit that cost more than the average American mortgage. I poured him a glass of Krug. Impressive room, Vanessa, he said, watching the crowd. Controlled. I like controlled. Chaos is bad for business, Marcus, I replied, taking a seat opposite him. You can't monetize a mess. We were discussing a potential expansion of Lumen into Vegas. This was the night I was supposed to close him. But I had one eye on the security feed from the front door. Chase had arrived. He rolled up in a rented white Ferrari, flanked by his usual circus. He was wearing a white suit with no shirt underneath, layers of gold chains and sunglasses. He looked like a drug dealer from a bad 80s movie. I watched the interaction on the screen. The head doorman, Big Tony, stopped him. I could see the argument. Chase was pointing at the door. Tony was shaking his head. Chase pointed at his phone. Tony crossed his arms. Problem? Marcus asked, noticing my distraction. Just a minor variable, I said, testing the filters. I tapped my comms. Let him simmer for 2 more minutes, Tony. Then let him in. But make him check the phone, no pouches. He checks it at the coat check. Physically. He's gonna flip, boss. Let him flip. He needs to enter the room agitated. I watched Chase scream at Tony. I saw him shove his phone into the hands of the coat check girl with enough force that she flinched. He was fuming. He stormed past the velvet rope, adjusting his jacket, trying to regain his composure. He entered the main room. The transition from the humidity outside to the cool, jasmine-scented air of the club usually relaxes people. Not Chase. He was vibrating with adrenaline and rage. He scanned the room, looking for his usual table, booth 4. But booth 4 was occupied by the NBA players. I saw the confusion on his face. He grabbed a passing server, one of my best girls, Alina. He barked something at her. She politely shook her head and pointed to the bar, general admission. The insult landed. I saw his jaw clench even from 50 feet away. He had been relegated to the standing room-only peasants. He pushed his way to the bar, ordering shots, was drinking fast, too fast. He was looking around, desperate for eyes on him, but without his phone, he couldn't perform for the internet. He had to perform for the room, and the room wasn't looking. Then he looked up. He saw the owner's box. He saw the glass, and he saw Marcus Sterling. I saw the recognition dawn on him. He grabbed his friend's arm and pointed. He smoothed his hair. He checked his reflection in a brass pillar. Here we go, I murmured. What? Marcus asked. Marcus, I said, leaning in. There's someone who might try to say hello. The son of my former partner. He's enthusiastic. He has some ideas about a club he wants you to fund. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The Cloud 9 kid? I've seen the pitch deck. It was written in Comic Sans. That's him. He's about to try to crash the box. Shall I have security stop him? No, I said, my voice smooth as silk. I want you to meet him. I want you to see exactly who you'd be in business with. Marcus looked at me, then down at Chase, who was now pushing his way toward the stairs that led to the VIP mezzanine. You're up to something, Vanessa. I'm just clarifying the market, Marcus. Chase reached the bottom of the stairs. The guard there, instructed by me, stepped aside. Chase ascended. He thought he was walking up the stairway to heaven. He was walking to the gallows. Door to the owner's box is heavy soundproof glass. When Chase pushed it open, the thumping bass of the club was instantly cut to a dull thud, replaced by the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the clink of crystal. He burst in like a grenade. "Vanessa," he shouted, throwing his arms out. "What is this? Why is my table taken? Do you know who I brought? I got the guys from." He stopped. He saw Marcus Sterling sitting on the velvet sofa, legs crossed, holding a flute of champagne. Chase's entire demeanor shifted. It was like watching a chameleon try to change colors on a strobe light. The rage mask fell, replaced by a greasy, desperate charm. "Oh wow," Chase said, stepping fully into the room, uninvited. "Mr. Sterling, Marcus, wow, I didn't know you were. I'm Chase, Chase Reynolds, we emailed." He extended a hand. His palm was sweaty. I could see the sheen of it under the track lighting. Marcus didn't stand. He didn't smile. He looked at the hand, then looked at Chase's face. He took a slow sip of his drink. "I remember the email, Mr. Reynolds. It had a lot of exclamation points." Chase laughed, a loud, nervous bark. "Yeah, well, passion, right? That's what I bring. Passion, energy." He looked at me, his eyes narrowing slightly. Unlike some people who like to keep things sleepy. He sat down. He sat down next to Marcus Sterling, uninvited, the vintage velvet sofa. He sat so close their knees almost touched. I didn't speak, I just watched. I swirled the ice in my glass, so Chase said, leaning in, invading Marcus's personal space. "What do you think of Lumen? Cute, right? A little dated. My dad built this place, you know. Back when this style was cool. But Cloud9, bro, Cloud9 is gonna be the future. I'm talking NFTs on the walls, crypto payments only, metaverse integration." "Metaverse?" Marcus repeated, his voice flat. "Exactly. Vanessa here," Chase gestured to me with a thumb like I was a piece of furniture. "She doesn't get it. She's stuck in the 2010s. She thinks people want privacy. Bro, people want to be seen, they want to be famous." He reached for the bottle of Krug on the table. My bottle. He poured himself a glass, spilling a little on the lacquer table. He didn't wipe it up. "Chase," I said, my voice quiet. "You're interrupting a meeting." Spun on me, the alcohol and the proximity to money emboldening him. "Oh, come on, Nessie. Don't be a buzzkill. I'm just talking business. You're always so uptight. Maybe if you loosened up, you wouldn't be sitting up here alone all the time." He turned back to Marcus, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, explicitly ignoring me now. "See, that's the problem with female owners," he said, winking. "Too emotional. Too attached to the vibe. You need a killer. You need a guy who knows how to hunt." The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus slowly set his glass down. He looked at Chase with the kind of look a scientist gives a fascinating, disgusting insect. "You think Vanessa is emotional?" Marcus asked. "I mean, look at her," Chase laughed, gesturing at me. "She's upset because I took a drink. It's small thinking. I'm a big picture guy." Chase leaned back, spreading his arms, putting his muddy loafers on the edge of the coffee table. "You fund me, Marcus, and I'll put this place out of business in 6 months. I'll crush her. No offense, Vanessa, just business." He grinned. He thought he had crushed it. He thought he was displaying alpha dominance. I looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod passed between us. The interview was over. "Chase," I said, standing up. "What?" He snapped, annoyed at the interruption of his pitch. "Spilled champagne on the table, so? Get a maid to clean it up." "I don't need a maid," I said, reaching into my pocket. "I have a janitor." I pressed the button on my comms, 2 clicks. The door opened 3 seconds later. Jackson didn't come alone. He brought 2 others. They filled the room like storm clouds. Chase looked up, confused. Whoa, party's getting crowded. Jackson didn't speak. He walked around the table. He moved with a terrifying efficiency, reached down and grabbed Chase by the back of his white collar and the belt of his trousers. "Hey," Chase yelped, spilling his stolen champagne. "What the hell? Get off me, Marcus." "Tell them." Marcus didn't even look at him. He was inspecting his fingernails. Jackson hoisted Chase up. Chase scrambled, his loafers slipping on the rug. "Vanessa, call off your dogs. I'm Thomas Reynolds' son." "I own this town. You own nothing," I said, my voice cutting through his panic. "You are a guest. Your invitation has expired. You can't do this. I'm a VIP." "Jackson," I said calmly, "the freight elevator." "Freight?" Chase screamed as they dragged him toward the door. "I'm not garbage. Tonight you are," Jackson grunted. They hauled him out of the box. I followed them to the railing of the mezzanine. Below, the club was still pumping. The beautiful people were dancing. Jackson and his team didn't take the back stairs. They took the main stairs. They marched Chase Reynolds, self-proclaimed king of Miami, right through the center of the Diamond Room. It was a perp walk. People turned. The music seemed to fade into the background as the spectacle took over. Chase was kicking, shouting, "Do you know who I am?" The saddest, most cliché sentence in the English language. I watched from above, leaning on the glass rail. I saw the NBA players in booth 4 point and laugh. I saw the girls who used to drink his vodka turn their backs. I saw the influencers reaching for their phones, then realizing they were locked in pouches, and just staring, burning the image into their brains to gossip about later. They dragged him to the side exit, the one that dumps out into the alley with the dumpsters. I turned back to the room. Marcus Sterling was pouring himself a fresh glass. That, Marcus said, was the most efficient business presentation I've seen in years. I aim to please, I said, sitting back down. So, Marcus said, about Vegas. If you can handle the rats there as well as you handle them here, I'm in. I can handle anything, Marcus, but I wasn't done. The physical removal was just the show. The real work was happening digitally. I pulled out my phone. I sent a text to Saul. Execute phase 2, breach of NDA, harassment, defamation. Contact the trust. And then I sent a text to the head of IT. Blacklist ID, Reynolds C. Facial recognition update. Doesn't get past the sidewalk, ever again. I looked down at the empty spot on the sofa where Chase had sat. The wet stain of champagne was drying. We'll need to roof-ulster that, I noted. Small price, Marcus said, clinking his glass against mine. To the silence. To the silence, I agreed. The alley behind Lumen smells of ozone and stale beer. It's not glamorous. It's where the magic stops and reality begins. Chase was thrown, literally thrown, onto the asphalt. His white suit was ruined. He scrambled up, screaming at the steel door that had just slammed shut in his face. You're dead, Vanessa. You're done. He ran to the front of the club, to the coat check window that opens to the street. Give me my phone. Give me my damn phone. The girl handed it to him, looking terrified. He snatched it. His hands were shaking. I'm gonna ruin her. I'm gonna burn it down. Watch this. He unlocked his phone. He went to Instagram. He hit live. Error. Account suspended. He blinked. He tapped it again. Your account has been suspended for repeated violations of community guidelines and intellectual property reports. What? He whispered. He went to TikTok. Account locked. He went to Twitter. Suspended. He didn't know that for the last 3 hours, my legal team had been filing mass reports for every single unauthorized video he had taken inside Lumen over the last year. Every face he showed without consent, every copyrighted song in the background, every defamatory caption. We flooded the platforms. We triggered the bots. He was digitally erased. No, he stammered, pacing on the sidewalk. The line of people waiting to get in, people who used to beg for his attention, were ignoring him. He was just a crazy guy in a dirty suit screaming at a phone. Then his email pinged. It wasn't a social media notification. It was a legal notice from the law offices of Saul Goodman and Asok. Acting for the Thomas Reynolds Estate Trust, subject. Notice of violation of morality clause / suspension of stipend. He froze. The email detailed, with timestamps and attached affidavits from my staff, instances of assault, the shove, substance abuse on premises, and gross reputational damage to the Reynolds legacy. Effective immediately. Monthly disbursement from the Reynolds Trust is suspended pending a competency hearing. Access to the family capital fund is revoked. The money, the tap was turned off. Chase stood there, the humidity curling his hair, the sweat stinging his eyes. The white Ferrari at the curb, it was a lease. The suit, put on a credit card he paid off with the trust allowance. He looked at the club. He could hear the bass thumping through the walls. He was outside. And for the first time in his life, there was no golden key to get him back in. The door opened. He looked up, hopeful. Big Tony stepped out. He held a small, laminated card. It was a photo of Chase from the security feed with a red band stamp across his face. Tony taped it to the podium where the bouncer stood. Move along, kid, Tony said, his voice heavy with pity. You're blocking the guests. Chase opened his mouth to scream, to threaten, to say something. But he looked at the line of people. Were laughing, not with him. At him, he turned and walked away. He didn't get in the Ferrari. He walked down the street into the dark, just another nobody in a city that eats nobodies for breakfast. 3 weeks later, the upholstery on the sofa in the owner's box had been replaced. The stain was gone. Lumen was quiet. It was a Tuesday afternoon, my favorite time. The cleaners were vacuuming the carpets, a rhythmic, soothing sound. The club smelled of lemon polish and potential. I sat at my desk, reviewing the P&L statement. The Vegas deal with Marcus Sterling was signed. Construction would begin in the fall. We were projecting a 200% ROI in the first year. Jackson knocked on the open door frame. Package for you, boss. He handed me a thick envelope. It was hand-delivered, no postage. I recognized the handwriting. It was jagged, frantic. Chase. I felt a ghost of a pang in my chest. I remembered the 16-year-old boy drinking Coke in the DJ booth. I remembered the promise I made to Thomas. Look out for my boy. I had looked out for him. I had stopped him from destroying himself completely. I had stopped him from wasting the family fortune on a club that would have failed in a month. I had given him the greatest gift you can give a spoiled child: consequences. I didn't open the envelope, knew what was inside: an apology, a plea, a request to talk, maybe a threat. It didn't matter. Words are cheap. Actions are currency, and his account was overdrawn. Burn it, I said, sliding the envelope back across the desk to Jackson. Don't you want to read it? No, I said. We don't look back, Jackson. We only look at the door. Jackson nodded, took the envelope, and left. I swiveled my chair to look at the monitors. The cameras cycled through the empty rooms. Main floor, the gold room, the diamond room, the vault. It was my kingdom. It was a fortress of silence in a noisy world. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a bottle of scotch, Thomas's brand. I poured 2 glasses, one for me, one for the empty chair opposite me. I did it, Thomas, I whispered to the empty room. I saved the name. I kept the standard. I took a sip. It burned, warm and grounding. The phone on my desk buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. Vegas blueprints are in. They want to know if we need a designated space for influencers. I smiled, a real smile. I typed back, no, build higher walls, make the glass darker. We sell mystery. If they want to be seen, they can go to the circus. I hit send. I turned off the lights in the office. Below me, the staff was preparing for the night. The ice was being stocked. The lights were being tested. The bass was beginning to hum, heartbeat starting up again. The show goes on. The guest list is closed, and I am exactly where I belong, in the dark, in control.
Places don't hand out justice memos, but somehow it always finds the right inbox. This story was proof that quiet moves beat loud egos every time. Thanks for listening. See you next time.